Spock knew his death was coming in Star Trek, and one heartbreaking moment proves he predicted it. Spock knew his time in the Star Trek universe was coming to a close, and one heartbreaking moment proves he predicted it. After a distinguished career in Starfleet, and as an ambassador, Spock found himself hurled into an alternate universe, where his story eventually came to an end. In Star Trek, Defiant 21, Spock is seemingly aware of how he will die, making a prediction that will sadly come true. Star Trek, Defiant 21 is written by Christopher Cantwell and drawn by Angel Unzueta. Spock has just helped Worf and the crew of the Defiant turn back a Romulan invasion of an agrarian world. As the dust settles, Spock reflects on the incident and his life as a whole. Spock muses that we burn on, in a constant state of flux, even if we perceive it as static. Spock's philosophical train ultimately arrives at its destination, that we all die alone. Before Spock can think any further, Worf breaks up his train of thought. While Spock was contemplating life in general, it is easy to see, in his assertion that people die alone, that he was predicting his own death. In the late 24th century, the Romulan Empire was threatened by a supernova in its home star system, and Spock, who had devoted his life to Romulan's Vulcan reunification, agreed to help. As seen in 2009 Star Trek, Spock's efforts were for naught, and Romulus was destroyed. Furthermore, thanks to the technology Spock used, he was sent back in time, helping create the Kelvin universe. The Kelvin universe would turn out to be Spock's final resting place. After helping the Kelvin Enterprise on at least 2 occasions, Spock passed away, as seen in 2016 Star Trek Beyond. While the film did not reveal how Spock died, Star Trek Discovery explained, in its 3rd season, that travel between universes can be a dicey proposition, one with potentially deadly consequences for the health of those who do. If this law holds, then not only did Spock die alone, he most likely died in great pain. IDW's Star Trek comics are set before Spock's exile to the Kelvin universe began, and the creative teams behind those books have given insight into Spock's mindset shortly before the Romulan supernova. Spock is still working to reunite the Vulcans and the Romulans, work that gets sidetracked by the God War. After its conclusion, Spock continues to serve alongside Worf on the Defiant, which brings him deep into a plan for a Romulan coup documented in the book's most recent storyline, The Stars of Home. During the course of events, he learns of the impending supernova. Did Spock correctly guess he would die alone? The events of The Stars of Home have set into motion a chain of events that will culminate with Spock's exile and death in Star Trek. Defiant 21 implies he knew this ahead of time. Serving in Starfleet brings many risks, including the possibility of death, as well as potentially dying alone. Spock, with half a century of Starfleet experience, knows and understands these risks. Spock knows he cheated death once before, but also understands that it was a one-time deal. With most of his friends from the Enterprise dead, Spock's mind is dwelling heavily on mortality. Spock's death in Star Trek Beyond was heartbreaking. Spock tried to save the Romulans but failed, and for his troubles was permanently sent to an alternate universe. Yet, even in a different universe, Spock's commitment to justice and fairness never wavered, even if he witnessed the destruction of his homeworld. Spock was no doubt in pain the whole time but pressed on to help his younger counterpart, and the now homeless Vulcans. Spock walked a solitary path in the last years of his life, and he was seemingly aware of this, but still went to his death with honor. Spock, the ever-logical Vulcan of Star Trek, lived by the principles of reason, self-sacrifice, and duty. But beneath his stoic exterior, his profound understanding of fate and mortality often surfaced in subtle, almost imperceptible ways. One of the most heartbreaking moments in Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan, suggests that Spock not only accepted his death, but foresaw it long before the climactic sacrifice that would make him a legend. The quiet acceptance of fate. Throughout The Wrath of Khan, Spock operates with a certain sense of calm, even as danger mounts. Unlike Kirk, who wrestles with aging and loss, or McCoy, who lashes out with emotional urgency, Spock maintains a quiet but firm resolve. His actions aren't just those of a Starfleet officer following protocol. They feel more like a man preparing for the inevitable. This is best exemplified in a simple yet devastating exchange early in the film. As the Enterprise prepares for its training exercises, Spock observes Kirk, sensing his inner turmoil about growing older. When Kirk expresses doubt about his place in the universe, Spock responds with a cryptic but deeply telling statement. "You are my superior officer. You are also my friend. I have been and always shall be yours." At first glance, this line feels like a reaffirmation of their friendship, a reassurance to Kirk. But in hindsight, it plays like a farewell, an acknowledgement that Spock is aware his time is limited. The way he delivers it is almost ceremonial, with a finality that lingers far beyond the words themselves. A foreseen sacrifice, Spock's prescience about his fate isn't just emotional, it's practical. His scientific mind understands probabilities better than anyone. When the Enterprise engages Khan in a deadly game of cat and mouse, Spock is keenly aware of the ship's vulnerabilities. He knows that the warp drive is critically damaged and that a worst-case scenario would demand an immediate solution, one that might require an ultimate sacrifice. This leads to the heartbreaking moment of Spock's final decision. As radiation levels spike in the engine room, Spock does not hesitate. He doesn't even pause to inform his crewmates of his plan. Instead, he simply stands, straightens his uniform, and walks toward the reactor. It's not a reckless decision. It's not even a rushed one. It's the choice of a man who has already made peace with his fate. He knew this was coming. The devastating proof, Spock's last words. Spock's last words to Kirk in the radiation chamber remain one of the most emotional moments in Star Trek history. As he presses his hand against the glass in the Vulcan salute, he softly repeats, "I have been and always shall be your friend." This moment cements the earlier exchange as a foreshadowing of his death. He didn't just say it in passing, he meant it as a farewell. Spock knew in some deep, unspoken way that his final mission aboard the Enterprise would end with this moment. It's a rare glimpse into something deeply human about Spock. While his Vulcan side relies on logic, his human side understands destiny in ways that defy pure calculation. He didn't just react to the crisis, he had already accepted that this was how his journey would end. Spock's death, a logical yet profoundly emotional choice. Spock's actions in the Wrath of Khan embody the very essence of Star Trek, the balance between logic and emotion, duty and friendship, life and death. His decision is logical. He is the only one who can repair the warp core in time to save the Enterprise. But it's also deeply personal. He does it not just because it is the right thing to do, but because he cares. His final words to Kirk, paired with his earlier statement, serve as proof that he had already made peace with his fate long before the moment arrived. It's not just a sacrifice, it's a culmination of everything Spock has ever stood for. Legacy of a hero. Spock's death wasn't just tragic, it was poetic. His foresight, his quiet acceptance, and his final words make it clear that he understood his fate long before it arrived. And yet, even in death, he leaves a lesson. The needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few, or the one. This philosophy, uttered earlier in the film, comes full circle in his final act. Spock didn't just predict his death, he embraced it as part of something greater than himself. That, above all, is what makes his loss so heartbreaking. And it's why his final words to Kirk still resonate across the stars. Spock's death wasn't just tragic, it was poetic. His foresight, his quiet acceptance, and his final words make it clear that he understood his fate long before it arrived. And yet, even in death, he leaves a lesson. The needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few, or the one. This philosophy, uttered earlier in the film, comes full circle in his final act. Spock didn't just predict his death, he embraced it as part of something greater than himself. That, above all, is what makes his loss so